recorded. I always like to give people a fair warning that they're being recorded.
Perfect. We're going to go ahead and turn our video off and mute the mic and take a seat.
Perfect. Sounds good. I'm going to share my screen. I have a little PowerPoint to show. All right. So there are 2 points to my presentation this morning that I want to share with students. One of them is strategies and tips for success in online courses. I know back in March, many students were thrown into the online environment because of COVID, and some of them had great experiences and some of them had some not so great experiences. And so as the executive director for online learning at Ferris, I wanted to give you some tips and suggestions for improving your chances for success in an online class. And then the second half of my presentation, I'm going to do a brief explanation of what Wintermester is and give you some ideas on why you might want to take a Wintermester class and also how to find out what we're offering for Wintermester. But at any point, please feel free to stop me and ask questions. I really don't want this to be a formal presentation. I'd like it to be an interactive presentation. And so if there's anything that's not clear or any questions that you have or anything that I don't cover that you would like an answer to, please feel free to stop me and ask those questions. So the first thing I want to share with you is how online classes are different than face-to-face classes. And so there are lots of ways that they're different, but the primary reason that they're different is because they require students to regulate their own learning. And by that, in face-to-face classes, students have a little bit more structure. Usually they'll know that they have to go to class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Thursday. There's a block of time that is set aside in their schedule where they physically take themselves to a location on campus and they sit in front of the instructor and they either listen to a lecture or they do an activity or a combination of the two. And that time is typically 3 hours a week. Online classes can have a synchronous component. Some faculty choose to let students know that they have to log into Zoom or log into Canvas or log in to some other textbook software at a certain time during the week, but many of our online classes are what's called asynchronous. And that means that there are no set times where a student has to log in at a time to meet with their instructor, but they have weekly tasks or daily tasks that they have to get done based on the schedule of the course. So because of that, students have to regulate the amount of time that they spend doing those activities, reading chapters, going through PowerPoints, listening to lectures, and they need to schedule a minimum of 3 hours a week on their own time to do those things in an online class. So that requires some self-discipline. That's a little bit different than face-to-face because the instructor tells you when and where to be participating in the class. In addition to the 3 hours of class time, all courses require additional time to do homework and do assignments associated with the course. And that's usually an additional 3 to 4 hours. And so in an online class, in addition to those 3 hours that you spend on learning activities, like listening to lectures and going through PowerPoints and reading the textbook, you need to schedule yourself an additional 3 to 4 hours per week to do other activities and assignments that are assigned to you. And so we typically recommend that a student set aside 6 to 7 hours per online class that they will dedicate to working on those courses. And so the great thing is that students can schedule them based on their availability. So we have some students that are night owls and they do a lot of their homework at night or in the wee hours of the morning. We have other students that work full time. And so they set aside time when they get home from work sometimes after their kids have gone to bed to do that homework. We do not recommend that students have one big chunk of 6 to 7 hours on a Saturday or Sunday that they spend working on their classes. Although we know that sometimes that's their only option, we recommend that you schedule time throughout the week on your online classes. Another way that online classes are different than face-to-face classes is that they require students to troubleshoot their own problems. So In an online class, if you have an assignment due at 11:59 p.m. on a Sunday night, sometimes students wait until 9 o'clock at night before the assignment is due to start working on that assignment. And it's Murphy's Law that that's when your computer will lose internet connection, or when you'll get the blue screen of death on your computer, or you won't be able to access Canvas for some reason, or the assignment will say it's closed because of some sort of glitch. And so if a student isn't tech savvy, they can really be stressed out in an online class because they have to be able to know who to contact during those times for help. We actually have disseminated some stickers all over campus, so you should look for those stickers because they have the phone numbers and the email addresses for the 3 primary support services at Ferris. E-learning, which is my department, is who you should contact for problems with Canvas, problems with Zoom, or just problems that you might be having navigating an online course. Like you can't find the syllabus, or your instructor said that there's an assignment due, but you can't find the assignment. You can pick up the phone and call e-learning, or you can email elearning@ferris.edu, and someone will get back to you relatively quickly to help you with those problems. If you're having problems with your email, if you're having problems with my FSU, that's IT, the IT Service Center. And so you can, again, call or email IT Service Center, and they can help you. And if you're having problems with library resources, or if you're having problems, if you're struggling in your courses and you need some tutoring or you need help with writing, then that's the Academic Literacy Center. And that's actually who this presentation was organized through. And so keep an eye open for those stickers, because they can really help you in a time crunch be able to figure out who to contact pretty quickly to get support and some help. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've covered so far? All right. So the next thing I want to talk about is how online classes are similar to face-to-face courses. The first thing is that the student learning objectives for a face-to-face course and an online course are exactly the same. We are required by our accreditation, by the Higher Learning Commission, to ensure that the outcomes, in other words, what you learn in a face-to-face class, is exactly what you'll learn in an online class. So if you take a history class fully online, and if your roommate takes it face-to-face, even though you might have a different textbook and you might have a different instructor, you should be able to master the same objectives, the same content as your friend or roommate who's taking a face-to-face section. So the content that's delivered is exactly the same in a face-to-face versus an online class. You might have different activities. Excuse me. You might have an instructor that does a lot of discussion posts, whereas the face-to-face instructor would have discussions in class. You might have an online class that has a daily quiz just to make sure that you've read the material, whereas the face-to-face instructor might have a big paper that the students do instead. So activities and assignments might be different, but what you're learning in the class is exactly the same. The key that I tell students is the very first thing you should do in any class, whether it's a face-to-face or an online class, is go through the syllabus. Make sure that you are understanding what is happening in the syllabus, because that's really the contract that you have between your instructor and your expectations for the course. So how the instructor grades, what the total points are in the class, what types of activities and assignments are required. The timeliness for feedback is often in the syllabus. How quickly you can expect to receive a response if you email the instructor. All of that information is in the syllabus. And so it's really important that you understand, because some instructors have different requirements, it's called academic freedom, than other instructors. And so you can't assume that because your roommate took the class last semester that the class is going to be exactly the same. The syllabus is usually updated every semester. Communication with your professor and your classmates is essential to success, whether you're in a face-to-face or an online class. Now, that communication might be a little bit easier in a face-to-face class because you might have somebody that you sit next to every day that you can interact with and talk to. But I strongly suggest in an online class that you make the effort to get to know your instructor, you get to know your classmates, and you can do that in a variety of ways. Sometimes instructors set up discussion forums for students to interact with each other, but you can always use Canvas email and even Zoom. You can message people in Zoom or communicate with your classmates through Zoom. So it's important that you communicate with your instructor and your fellow classmates, whether you're in a face-to-face or an online class. Grades are calculated the exact same way, and how a professor determines your grade is typically outlined in the syllabus. Again, going back to that second point, make sure you look through the syllabus, because that can really make or break your success in a class, whether it's face-to-face or online. But how grades are calculated in a face-to-face class versus an online class are the same, and that's determined by the instructor. So some instructors have, point systems where you get 10 out of 10 or 100 out of 100. Some of them do grade systems, so you'll get an A or a B or a C on a paper, and how that is calculated into your final grade is usually outlined in the syllabus. The last way that online classes are similar to face-to-face classes is that the Ferris student code of conduct applies to an online class the same that it does a face-to-face. That being said, it's a little bit more challenging for an instructor to observe violations of that code of conduct in an online class versus a face-to-face class. So if a student has an outburst in a face-to-face class, a faculty member can see that and can address that outburst or whatever is happening with that student right then and there. Because a lot of online classes have asynchronous components, again, asynchronous means that they're not at a scheduled date and time with the instructor, it's up to you as the student to report any misbehavior. So if you're having a problem with a classmate, if you're having a problem with an instructor, then you need to make sure that you speak up and let the instructor or let the dean of the college know any challenges that you're having in an online class, because that student code of conduct is still very important, and it's very applicable whether you're taking a face-to-face class or an online class. So again, I'll pause here to see if anybody has any questions before I move on. I'm sporting my Wintermester coffee mug today, just so that it's the theme. All right. So the number one question that we get asked in the e-learning department by students is online learning easier or more difficult than face-to-face learning? And honestly, it is dependent on a lot of different factors. But there are five ways that I can give you, or 5 suggestions that I can give you to set you up for success in an online class. First is be proactive. Do not procrastinate. If you are a procrastinator, you know you're a procrastinator. I am a procrastinator. I know I'm a procrastinator. And so if you're honest with yourself, you know whether you're proactive, meaning that you get tasks done early, versus those of you that wait till the last minute. So in an online class, if you are a natural procrastinator, fight that with everything you have, because that is really the number one factor that causes students the most amount of stress. Is they've waited to the last minute, they haven't given themselves enough time to complete the tasks and the activities in an online class up to the quality that they know that they can turn out. They just ran out of time. Number 2 is schedule set times throughout the week for each of your online classes. I mentioned this on the first slide, but I can't reiterate it enough. Make sure that you're scheduling your time for your class the same that you would in a face-to-face class. So if you have a class Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 11 to 11:50, and you're taking an online class, maybe from noon to 1 every day, you're gonna sit and do something associated with that online class. Or maybe 2 hours a day on a Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. And you can arrange your time that you spend on the class based on when things are due in the classes. And again, you can find out when things are due, guess where? Syllabus. So make sure you look at the course calendar. Some faculty have everything due once a week. Sometimes it's Sundays at 11:59. And other instructors might schedule it out where you have things due on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. Sometimes the faculty have things due every day. There's something, sometimes small, sometimes large, due every day. And so it's your responsibility as a student in an online class to make sure you know when things are due, and then you set time throughout the week for each of your online classes. Number 3 is identify all the campus resources that are available to you, and make sure, like I said before, that you write down that contact information. So make sure you know who the e-learning department is. That's my department. And our email address is elearning@ferris.edu. And we also have a phone number that I can share with all of you if you'd like it. And so make sure you write that somewhere that's readily available. Or like I said, look for those stickers that we disseminated across campus, because you can stick those in a notebook, you can stick it on your computer, and there you have all of the information right at your disposal whenever you might need it. So make sure you know how to contact IT services, make sure you know how to contact Flight, make sure you know how to contact the Academic Literacy Center, and have that information readily available, so that if you try to log into MyFSU one night and it says authentication error, you know exactly who to contact in IT to find out if that's a Ferris state or university-wide issue. Our email went down a couple nights ago, and that was a Microsoft issue. That wasn't a Ferris issue. But you can pick up the phone right away and call someone and find out if it's an issue with your account that can easily be fixed, or if it's an issue that the university is experiencing, and hopefully your instructor will know that it's an issue as well. Number 4 is communicate with your professor frequently. I highly suggest that you send your professor an email during the first week of class, introducing yourself, expressing any concerns you might have about the class, any questions you might have about the syllabus. Some faculty create a discussion board that is dedicated to topics like that, and others don't. But again, going back to being proactive as an online student, being communicative with your professors and with your classmates will really make a big difference in your success in an online class. Last but not least, and this is something that I'm surprised that students don't know, that in some classes, in many classes, you can actually work ahead. And so if you have an instructor that has a weekly quiz, you can take those quizzes sometimes ahead of time. Now, that's not true in all classes. Some professors have specific timeframes that they want you to complete work, and that's so that you can pay attention to the lectures and that the assignments make sense and that everything's within a certain context of the curriculum that you're learning. But there are some instructors that will allow you to work ahead. You can read ahead. So let's say, for instance, you know that you're going to be really busy 2 weeks from now because you're helping your friend move. Well, maybe you should read the chapter from that week ahead of time. And then that way, when you are actually doing the assignments for the class, you can go back through and skim through that information because you've already read it. So work ahead if you can. And I always suggest students work ahead because it helps prevent stress when things that are unforeseen come up. We all have challenges through the semester. Faculty have them and students have them. Sometimes we get sick and can't get out of bed for 3 days, and now we're behind by 3 days. Sometimes we have bosses that schedule us for shifts when we ask for those shifts off. Sometimes we have parents that get ill or siblings that get ill, and we have to go home on a weekend that we didn't expect to go home to help take care of them. So things happen. No matter how much you try to prevent them, things happen. And so if you work ahead, you prevent some of the stress because you know that you have fewer assignments that you have to take care of during that time. So before we move on to what Wintermester is, does anybody have any questions about any of the content that I covered in terms of how to improve your success in an online class? All right, I'm either being really thorough or you're just not interested. I'm gonna go with I've been really thorough. All right, so Wintermester. How many of you have heard of Wintermester? You can use your little, raise your hand if you've heard of it before in Zoom. All right, so Wintermester are courses that are offered online during the 3 weeks between fall and spring. So fall semester ends on a Friday, Wintermester starts the following Monday, and runs through the Friday before spring classes start. So it's 3 weeks, and they are full credit classes. So if you decide to take a history class during the regular semester, that's 16 weeks, or you decide to take that same history class during Wintermester during 3 weeks, it is the same course, it is the same content, it is the same learning outcomes, but it is 3 weeks instead of 16 weeks. So they are condensed and they are offered in an express format. So in a typical 16-week course, and I covered this on the first slide when I talked about success in online classes, we expect students in a 16-week class to dedicate 6 to 7 hours every week to each of their classes. Whether it's a face-to-face class or an online class, usually a minimum of 6 to 7 weeks or 6 to 7 hours is spent in a 16-week period. So if you take that total amount of time and then you divide it by 3 weeks, students are actually spending about 35 to 40 hours per week on a Wintermester class. Now, that sounds like a crazy amount of time, and it is. It's kind of the equivalent to a full-time job. However, you're getting a class taken care of in 3 weeks instead of 16. And so it's condensed. You pretty much live, breathe, and eat that Wintermester class for 3 weeks, but then you get a complete course taken care of. So you might ask yourself, what are the benefits? Why would I do this crazy class? Well, it can decrease time to graduation. So if you're an incoming freshman and you take a Wintermester course, all 4 years that you're a Ferris student, that's 4 classes that you've taken during Wintermester that you don't have to take during your last semester as a Ferris student. So technically, you could graduate a semester early, especially if you combine Wintermester courses with summer courses. You can really decrease. We've had students that have decreased their time to graduation by an entire year. They've been able to graduate in 3 years instead of 4, or 4 years instead of 5, depending on the number of classes that they take. Wintermester counts as part of spring. So when you register for a Wintermester class, you're actually registering for a spring class. So your financial aid for spring covers your Wintermester classes. And so we have had students that have taken a Wintermester class so that they could take fewer classes during the 16-week spring semester. So let's say, for instance, you need to take 5 classes. And let's say, for instance, you're like me and you're not so good in math. You might take a history class during Wintermester, and now you've only got 4 classes during your 16-week spring semester, and that means you can spend a little bit more time studying for that math class that might not come inherently easy to you, or you might have some struggles or challenges with it. You might have to spend more than 6 to 7 hours a week because you struggle with it. And so that's one of the benefits of Wintermester is even if you decrease your number of courses during the spring, you're still not falling behind in terms of graduation. And we've also found that Ferris athletes enjoy taking Wintermester because they can lighten their course load during their athletic season. So some of our football players have taken it so they could take fewer classes in the fall, and again, still stay on track for graduation. So how do you find out what courses are offered during Wintermester? Well, I am going to show you. If you go to Ferris's lookup classes, now you can do this either through what I just did on the Ferris homepage, or you can log into My FSU, and under your student tab, you'll also be able to look up classes. But you will choose spring semester. So spring 21 isn't posted yet, but it will be soon, which is why I'm doing this presentation now, so that you have this information available to you when spring semester opens. But we'll look at spring 2020 just to show you what was offered. And let's say, for instance, you know there's a specific class that you want to take during Wintermester. You can highlight it. So let's say, for instance, you know you want to see if there are any history classes. You can click on history, and then down here under attribute, you can see at the very bottom, it says Wintermester. And you can do class search. And you can see that last spring, we offered 2 different sections of Michigan history. So then you can contact your advisor and say, hey, I see that I've got this history elective that I need to take. Will Michigan history count for that? And you can determine whether or not that will work for your degree. Now, what happens if you just want to see all of the classes that are offered during Wintermester? Well, if you highlight the top subject and you scroll all the way to the bottom and you hit your shift key and hit the bottom, it will highlight all of them. So again, click on that top subject and then scroll all the way to the bottom, and at the same time you're hitting shift, click on the bottom one, it'll highlight the entire row. And then again, go down here to Wintermester and do class search. And then it'll think a little bit longer, and you can see all of the classes that we offered last Wintermester. Many of the classes that we offered last Wintermester will also be offered this Wintermester, but we'll have some other additional options. And again, we offer 100 level, 200 level, 300 level, and 400 level classes during Wintermester. Many of them are gen eds. We did that on purpose. We wanted students to have more flexibility in terms of when they were taking their general education courses. And so there are some electives, but many of the classes that we offer are general education. So that is my very brief overview of how to be successful in an online class and an overview of Wintermester. And I know this is only a 30-minute presentation, and I'm scheduled for an hour, but I wanted to be able to answer any questions that you might have about anything that I've talked about or anything that I didn't cover that you're interested in. Anything? All right. Well, I guess I'll give you an extra 30 minutes in your day. If you're taking an online class, you should do some homework for it, right?
On the video too.
I'm sorry, what was that, Tim?
I'm sorry. You did a great job.
Cool.
I don't know if there are any questions.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, again, my name is Amy Green. It's like the color with an E at the end. And my email is just amygreen@ferris.edu. So if there's anything I can ever do to help you, if you have questions, concerns, if you're having challenges, if you just don't know who to contact, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help anytime.
Great.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.